But yeah,
All right, we've
so
started recording.
okay.
Great to have you here today, Kushal Mehra. I
Thank
read
you.
this book, this recent book, Nastic, Why I'm Not an Atheist. We'll talk a bit about that today. Uh, but I wanted to start this by talking about the book launch because, well, I didn't exactly see the function because I was outside. There was too many people. But what happened at the book launch is I met at least 10 people at the book launch who had read my writings. None of them agreed with me, by the way, but they had read my writings seriously enough to be able to quote directly from it, things that I don't even remember writing. And the fact that you have inculcated an audience that is willing to look beyond echo chambers is I think is very admirable. And you do often talk to people who don't align with your political views or whatever. You recently talked to Manu Bhagavan, and it's it's very few people are doing that. So I just wanted you to admire you for that.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm very happy to speak with you. I'm infamous for saying lines like "kids are stupid" and stuff like that. And I'm dead serious when I
You
say
said
that.
that to me a couple of times. So.
Yeah. So, and I mean it because
Mm.
where I come from is that our frontal lobe, right? Frontal lobe is not developed till the age of 25. So, a lot of times till that age, we are using our emotions more than the rational side. And then there are exceptions, and I've always said that you are that exception. Well, and you actually prove my point because you are the exception, and the usual cohorts that you have of your age group are really stupid, and it's not their fault because even I was stupid at your age. I was clearly not as smart as you at your age because you're 20. I was, when as a 20-year-old, I had barely read a book other than school books. I don't count school books as reading.
Yeah,
uh,
no.
yeah, I don't count that. Where reading is when you go beyond the school book. That's considered reading for me. I had not done anything. I was very happy watching Sachin Tendulkar bat, and my life revolved around Sachin Tendulkar's batting, and that's about it. And I'm going to take my glasses off because it's annoying me now because I'm not used to wearing my glasses
Mm.
when I talk. So I'm sorry. इसको निकाल ही देते हैं चश्मे को. But yeah, so I to me it was refreshing uh, to see you read, and I'm very happy to chat with you. Which is why if I was always going to say yes when you reached out, I say no to, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but I truly say no to most people when some young kid reaches out to me, is because I know the questions are not going to be interesting, and for me, questions matter more than anything. Like I recently spoke with Amit Verma, and he was well prepared, and Amit spent a lot of time. He had a lot of time, and that's what I enjoyed. And as far as I'm glad that there were so many people out there who had read your work, is because I truly believe in the principle that an unexamined life is really not worth living. I am very open about where I land on the political spectrum or the social spectrum. I'm very clear, and I make sure people who follow me or watch my content, I think it's an ethical thing to tell
Yeah.
people. For me, see, my life, everything that I do, the back of my head, everything stems from the realm of moral and ethical philosophy. So I believe if I don't tell people who I vote for, I'm actually not doing the ethical thing. It doesn't mean the others who don't say that are unethical. It's just in my brain, I would call myself unethical. I just think it's so unethical to not tell people that I vote for the BJP and I have sympathies for the RSS for some things, that if a person comes to me and he doesn't know or she doesn't know that I am who I am, then it's unfair to them. And after that, if they speak with me, I'll speak with them. If they don't speak with me, I'll not speak with them. And there are many who don't. Like I have so many people in the left who listen to me silently, and then they're
Mm.
like PhDs. I'm not talking about like onga ponga lefties. I'm talking about PhDs inside the university system who will message me privately and say things like, "Are, we love your podcast. We agree with many things you say. We disagree with many things you say, but we can't say it openly or share it." And I'm like, it's like a secret society of people or something of that sort. But I'm not surprised that you met so many people who had read your work, because I was told this by my dear friend Nirmalya Datta, who edited my book, by the way. And to his credit, for free. I tried to offer him money as many times as possible, but he just refused to take money. He's like, "मैं नहीं लेगा पैसा." And he read the whole book chapter by chapter. So how we did it was, I used to write one chapter, send it to Nirmalya, start writing the second chapter, and Nirmalya in the meantime would work on the book. And Nirmalya used to tell me ki, Kushal, is very funny that even big BJP leaders, when they share articles, we don't get so many clicks per se of people who read it and time they spend on the platform. But when you share it, it's hilarious how many people actually read it, because you have cultivated an audience of serious people. What they tell me, and not that I'm just using Nirmalya as one example. There are many journalists who have told me that, and which is why they always want me to share articles. And I have a rule: I don't share anything until I read it. So I can't
Yeah,
share every article. Like, मैं पढ़ नहीं सकता हूँ. तो मेरे को ऐसा होता है, मेरे को अभी सबको मालूम पड़ गया है कि इसका सीरियस रीडर बेस है, तो 500 लोग भेज देते हैं. मैंने बोला, भाई मैं इतना तो मैं भी नहीं पढ़ सकता हूँ. आई एम नॉट गोना बी इन अ पोजीशन टू रीड इट. But I do tend to share all kinds of things, like, and I have a habit. I take the headline of the article, I paste the headline as the
mm,
tweet, and then
mm,
I share the link. So people think those are my views. I mean, people, which is
mm,
when I was like, people are so stupid. They don't even do the basic mehnat of realizing इसने सिर्फ आर्टिकल की हेडलाइन शेयर की है, because that's the thing to do. But it's okay. But I'm glad there are people in the audience who had engaged with your work, which is so heartening to me, that a non-left audience is also reading the left, which is very good. And I always tell kids, first thing you get up in the morning is not reading and consuming things that give you, positive affirmation. The first thing you should do in the morning when you get up and you start your reading is read things that give you cognitive dissonance, that question your priors. So if you are in the non-left, your daily morning chore should be reading the Scroll and the Wire, and then you go to a Swaraj or other portals, for example. And that's my routine. I recent podcast I did with Karan Bhasin on unemployment data.
mm,
For the first 1 hour of the podcast, I mean, I'm sure Karan must be annoyed also by that. All I was doing was quoting the Wire, the Scroll, the Economist, the Financial Times, everybody who's very anti Modi. And I spent the first 1 hour, making him answer those questions. And that's how I think preparation should be. And when you can state your opponent's argument as well as they do,
mm.
that's when you're a true intellectual.
Also, I think that it's very boring to read people from the from only your side. I personally read more from people I disagree with than people who agree with me, because it's more fun that way. It's intellectually challenging. It makes you think, and I don't want to be an automaton. And I think most people would not want to be an automaton. So I don't get the impulse to read only people who agree with you, but that's probably the tribal influence impulse of community and
Yeah, but who's not tribal? See, people who
mm,
think they're not tribal are lying to themselves. That's like a baseline human instinct. That is the Homo sapien instinct at its core. So it's not whether we are tribal or not. We are all tribal,
mm,
all of us, including you and I. It's how do we deal with it? How alert we are to the fact, and what cognitive tools, or to use Dan Dennett, intuition pumps, do we use to deal with those tribal instincts? That's the key to life. The key to life is finding cognitive tools to control our urges of groupthink, to control our urges of going with the flow, And it doesn't mean you become a compulsive contrarian. Never fall in that trap either. Because I meet
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of people who become compulsive contrarians, where if the world is going left, they will have to go right and vice versa. Like they're just compulsively contrarian because they are addicted to be the one who opposes. Never be that either. So for that you have to go through the process. You have to develop certain first principles. You have to develop certain rules of way or ways of thinking. You have to understand what hindsight bias is, what confirmation bias is, what different kinds of fallacies are, and once you are trained in that, and you have to train yourself. It's not like you just get up one day and you have first principles. No. Uh, it's a long drawn process, and even after doing all of that, you're still going to make mistakes. That I've not met a human being, no matter how rational they are, they make mistakes. I make
yeah.
mistakes. So uh, the question is how alert you are to the fact that you're going to make mistakes. So that's the cognitive flip we're talking about.
And how responsive you are to change your ways when you find out that it's a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the big deal if somebody calls you out and you're wrong and you change your mind? Let's say if somebody told me, like I'll give you an example, that the right is obsessed with this angle of love jihad.
Yeah.
So every time I talk to them, right? I say, so when you say love jihad, uh, so they'll ask me a question like, is love jihad real? I was like, at an absolute level, obviously it is real. There you will find 100 cases in a year where a Muslim man is literally preying on a Hindu woman, genuinely believing it's his duty to prey on her.
Mhm.
That's true. But the point is that that's not how you formulate arguments about realities of society. There is something that is statistically significant. There is
Yeah.
something that is statistically insignificant. It's like, every day we find a fire in some corner of India, and for 365 days, my Twitter timeline is full of fire. That means I extrapolate that the whole country is burning. That's not the case. So, until and unless you don't give me a statistical evidence of something, it doesn't mean that it is a statistically significant reality. It is a reality. It is a section inside a society, a micro, mini minority that is doing it. But a lot of times what I feel is these are things that people do because they want to prove their priors. And what is the prior in this case of love jihadis? There is a section of Hindus that doesn't like Muslims. I am saying it so
Yeah.
openly. And now they are using these anecdotal evidences, which are as real as it gets, to show that they dislike it. And iska example on the left is Hindus lynching Muslims. Are there Hindus who lynch Muslims? Absolutely. Is it statistically significant? No, it is not.
Lynching is statistically significant.
No, it's not. Because again, the lynching figures in India are going down, not increasing. The lynching and lynching of what sort? India mein you can get lynched for stealing a chappal. India mein you can.
That highlights a problem that exists in society.
Yeah, but that highlights a problem that exists, a lack of law and order in society,
Yes.
because where the state capacity has fallen down. But there is no Hindu mobs going around finding Muslims to beat them up. That
There
is the
are Hindu
extrapol.
mobs going around,
Well,
Muslims
there are
too.
Muslim mobs going around too. It
Sure,
doesn't mean.
sure.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean it's statistically significant. For something to be statistically significant, it should be a p factor variable, and it should be variably significant at the p factor level. Neither are Hindu mobs finding Muslims statistically significant as far as the p factor making it replicable at the level of a study, nor is the love jihad reality. There are enough people in India because you have 1.4 freaking billion people. When you have people who hump so much, you will all a few thousand in a 1.4 billion people country is statistically insignificant. You get into statistical significance in a country when you reach the level of lakhs. We just don't have them. And India, for a country that has such a pathetic police to citizen ratio, what is it? 1 is to 300? When the international norm is like 1 is to 100 is the international norm. By some Supreme Court reports, now there are 8 reports, right? 4 by the Supreme Court, 4 by committees before that. Some say 400, some say 300. We're literally, जिसको बोलते हैं ना हमारे colloquialism में, राम भरोसे society. We're literally a राम भरोसे society. Because if we were not a Ram Bharose society, these things would not be. India, for a country that has so few cops, is relatively peaceful. You have these kinds of situations in societies. I can take you to neighborhoods in the United States of America and Canada where the cops don't come, and you'll realize how different they are. Because there is something in the mimetic framework of India that still is attached to the idea of nonviolence. Indians are attached to the idea of nonviolence, not pacifism. I'm talking about nonviolence. Pacifism is not equal to nonviolence. Nonviolence is the no first strike policy. Like, if you beat me, then I will kick your ass. But if you don't, I'm gonna leave you alone. It's a very in terms of predatorial behavior, Indians in that sense are less predatorial, and maybe that is the reason Indians are also intellectual isolationists, because apparently their ancestors knew everything. And it is also one of the reasons that Indians lack, and now current Indians in the last 1,000 years lack the frontier mentality, which the Western world does, right? Going and exploring new societies and conquering them. Indians clearly lack that now. They've lost a lot of things that they had in the past. They were universalists at one point of time. They're not. So these things matter. And when I'm talking about the range of statistical significance, whether it's lynchings, like the lynching data is out. We can't say that the data under the Congress is real and the data under the BJP is false. Both are real. I'm looking at lynchings from 1947 onwards till now. Communal rights. Communal rights
Mm.
are another great example of seeing where a society is going, the direction of a society. And deaths from communal violence has come down to 10%. And in the absolute level, let's say there was a riot in 1980s, right? The probability of 1,000+ people dying in that riot are higher. Why? Because it's just society was less educated. There were more have-nots, and there was less cops. The police ratio at that time was worse than today. So when you look at these many factors, right, that's when you develop the necessary cognitive tools to have an opinion. But none of what I have said will make sense to the average convinced person on social media who hates Muslims or hates Hindus, depending on their side of the aisle. And they will be convinced that either Muslims are lynched all across the country, or Hindus are lynched all across the country, or are being preyed upon. And as people who are what I like to call cognitive dissonance creators, and I consider you to be one of them. Uh, our job is to consistently create that, where you go in and just shine the light on, oh, so this is what you are talking about and this is the evidence, now tell me what it is. That's how. So I hope I'm able to clarify what I'm saying.
So here's what I'm saying. Particular kinds of violence, like lynching in particular, existing in a particular society, at a particular socioeconomic point. And you see lynching was there in most parts of the world. It was major in the United States in the 1890s and 30s, and when the Ku Klux Klan came out
Till
after the
1960s it was there in the United
yeah
States, for the record.
1960s it was there.
Yeah.
So because of the sort of society that United States was at that particular time. So if lynchings are happening in India significantly enough for people to notice, it highlights the we are still living in a partly feudal society.
Pre-industrial too.
Yeah.
Pre-industrial, I think more than feudal, it's industrialization. Industrialization does something to us cognitively. It really changes us as a society. In fact, one of the fears that I have, I don't know if you read that article. I don't know that girl's name here. I can't pronounce it. TRINH Nomics or something on Twitter. बहुत बहुत अच्छा लिखती है यार. Damn it, what's her name यार? Uh, I don't know where that girl is from. She's a scholar. She's an economist, and she recently wrote this article on why we need manufacturing and not just. Uh, uh, the handle is Trinh nomics. So she's Vietnamese Californian, excellent scholar, lives in Hong Kong. And she wrote this article on why we need industrialization and not just the service sector. And she was clearly, criticizing Raghuram Rajan's whole, oh, we don't need manufacturing jibe that Raghuram Rajan gave. And I
It
agree with
made
her.
no sense economically, no matter from what perspective you belong to. I just,
It was not an economic remark,
yeah,
Anvesh.
I
It was a political remark. ये देखो ये होता है tribalism. कि सी दिस इज व्हाट ह्यूमन ट्राइबलिज्म एंड सेल्फिशनेस इज. मैं तो खुला बोल रहा हूं, मेरा काम नहीं हुआ, मेरे को निकाला, अब मैं इसके पीछे पड़ेगा. दैट्स ऑल इट इज. दैट्स ऑल. ह्यूमन बीइंग्स आर सो ऑब्वियस. लाइक अ पॉलिटिशियन दैट वाज, लाइक लुक एट विजेंदर सिंह. एक दिन पहले तक वो राहुल गांधी को रीट्वीट कर रहा है रात के 12-1 बजे तक. ठीक है. सुबह उठता है, वो इंटरव्यू देता है, अरे कल तो आप राहुल गांधी को आरटी कर रहे थे, फिर मैं सो गया. एंड दैट्स व्हाट हिज आंसर वाज, फिर मैं सो गया. So human beings are so tribal. Human beings are so tribal that it's so obvious that what they're doing. We should not be surprised by these things. So why Raghuram Rajan is doing what he's doing should not be like a surprise to neither you or I. We all know what he's doing, why he's doing it. It's very obvious why he's doing it. भाई काम नहीं मिला है, and इसको हिंदी में हम कहते हैं खिसियानी बिल्ली खंबा नोचे. That's all is the. But when we have industrialization in a society at a scale, and in India we still need it and we can still do it, is because textile is still a thing in India. Now, before somebody says, no, 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 just because I'm from a textile background doesn't mean I keep batting for textile. I'm saying it because there are some minimal skill requirement jobs, or low skilled jobs as they're called in economics terms, which textile can beautifully provide,
mm,
and we can still have those jobs in India. We can create those jobs in Bengal, we can create those jobs in Assam, Odisha, Andhra. A lot of these sectors should, honestly, I don't know why Tamil Nadu is a textile hub of India. They have high skilled people, they should not be having those jobs, but they have textile should be existing where? In Bangladesh and Bengal, right? See, Bangladesh is a textile hub, you can have a neighboring textile hub in Bengal, and it would be easier, right, logistically and many other ways.
mm.
And in the northeastern belt, the entire northeastern belt, Punjab should have textiles, because Punjab is now clearly a low skilled society. They are doing nothing in Punjab. The aspiration of the average Punjabi is that वो आइल को क्या आइल्स या जो भी एग्जाम है, ILLTS,
हाँ,
जो मतलब वो बेसिक, वो टोफेल, सस्ता टोफेल, बेसिकली वो है जो मेरे टाइम पे टोफेल होता था. टेस्ट ऑफ इंग्लिश एज फॉरेन लैंग्वेज उसको बोलते थे.
कनाडा जाएंगे।
हाँ, कनाडा जाने के लिए. Irony of ironies, I'm sitting in Canada as I'm talking to you right now. but this is not the standard. We need industrialization. When we will have industrialization, we'll have more disciplined society. Like for me, the act of running a factory and my workers coming in and working in a factory, it truly civilized them. It civilized me also. And I trust me, when you go through the industrialization process, right, at a mass scale in society, you do realize, like, you have industrialization matlab bus manufacturing factories, then people using those buses, and then the ones who manufacture and the ones who use. It's a culminating effect of multiple factors. And to say things like we don't need industrialization is ridiculous. So it's not just we are feudal. It's because we are feudal because we are not industrialized enough. We see less feudalism in urban centers in India compared to rural centers in India. Why? See, the new migrant coming into the urban center will take time to change to the urban reality. And migration in urban centers is very fast, right? But in a generation or two, right, that person whose family had come, like, I don't know how to say this, the Punjabis of Bombay or Delhi are very different from the Punjabis of Punjab. I don't know if your community you see similar differences, that people who
Yeah,
come in, it is, I'm sure it must be, but I notice this, like the Punjabis in Mumbai, Delhi are very different. They are just another species.
They're way more urbanized. They have adjusted to the urban reality. They like to follow rules far more than the Punjabis from Punjab. And the fact is, in India, other than Chennai, Bengaluru, Mumbai, Delhi, and which other city do we call? I seriously don't consider Kolkata to be an urban center. I just
No,
don't consider.
no.
No, it's
It
not.
was once upon a time, but it's been deindustrialized by the
Yeah.
communists.
So honestly, the MMR region, the NCR region are literally running this country's economy. Are we going to deny that? And everyone in that periphery, right? In that periphery gets industrialized and gets civilized in a generation or two. So what is India's problem then, Anvesh? India's problem is, oh shit, we have only two. We need 100 such NCRs and MMRs. We need more and more of this. We need more urbanization, industrialization. And Ambedkar was 100% right, and Gandhi was 100% wrong. And the curse of India is there are Gandhians in the Congress, there are Gandhians in the BJP,
We did
there are.
not follow either, by the way. We did not follow Ambedkar or Gandhi. We had
I,
so I'll tell you this: when Milton Friedman came to India during Nehru's time, and he came to Rajasthan and saw the textile industry and the handicraft industry, and he wrote to Nehru that, look, I have never seen a more uh, approving culture for self-entrepreneurship than India. You have such great traditions, and all you have to do is industrialize it and give them the part to take this country forward. But instead, what Nehru focused on was the building of dams and state-led development and all of that, the Soviet model, which completely destroyed India for the first 50 years of our time.
so listen, did we need those things that Nehru built? In my opinion, we did.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but what Nehru should have done was then let the market forces act by themselves for the rest of the country. The problem is that we're a very authoritarian society. And no matter who the leader is, they just don't trust the people enough.
I'm
And they
not
don't trust the
sure if we're
market
an
enough.
authoritarian society. I talked to Richard Nisbet, and he was like, Indians are perhaps the only people who come up to me and disagree with me and had no hesitation expressing their opinion to me. He was talking about Indian students. The other societies are much more sort of respecting of the professors or treating them as superior or things like that.
That's just an anecdotal thing. I mean, pupils are out.
It is an it is an it is an anecdotal thing, but Indians are very expressive.
They're
Indians.
expressive about the authoritarian tendencies also. So, I mean, expression is expression. I mean, I'm just going by the latest Pew poll I had. Did you see that? The latest Pew poll about Indians.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was that four quadrant? It was so interesting. Malab, we are also a confused society. See, when
We
I
are
say authority,
confused.
I don't mean we want Hitler. No, no, we don't want Hitler. We like freedom at a base level, but beyond a point, we do have this fetish for a strong person. So, like, we are favorably disposed towards direct democracy, authoritarianism, rules by expert, and military rule. All four. Now go figure that out.
Indira Gandhi is one of our top prime ministers. Continues to remain very popular.
Yeah.
So
So the source I'm talking about is the 2023 one, Global Attitude Survey, Pew. That is the source I'm talking about. The recent Pew poll. I mean, if you want, I can share it with you, and you
yeah, yeah.
can you can show it to the. This is the one I'm talking about. Ye wala. This one. This one. So it's very
Hmm.
interesting. In this poll, these are the four slides that we are talking about. Considerable support to rule by experts. Direct democracy is a good way to govern. Look at the Indian figure, right? A lot of Indians like direct democracy also. and and then how many want military rule? And here, autocracy. So it's a very funny society that India is. India is so complex that you'll always meet like this is an anecdote, but I can share this
Mm.
anecdote after sharing the survey, is you'll always meet that uncle. He's like, हमें सख्त इंसान चाहिए जो सबको ठीक कर दे. That mindset is very much there in India. And then I tell them, well, King Jong Un is also सख्त इंसान. He's like, उतना सख्त नहीं चाहिए. I was like, so how do you decide what is your barometer of itna sakt ya itna sakt? So I just think because Indians want discipline and order and law, they think that can only come through a strong man. Their solution is get a strong man. So you see what I'm trying to say? Indians want law and order, which is a very good thing. If a society by itself is craving law and order, that's a positive sign, not a negative sign, in my opinion. But anyways,
Yeah. Well, I want to move to your book. But before I do that, the sort of discussion that we had right now, where you were focusing on data and statistics and all of that, don't see that in a lot of Indian podcasts. I see that in you. I see that in Amit Verma, Shruti Rajgopal, and Milan Vaishnav. Few podcasts that I can name where the author actually reads the book, disagrees with his guests, has a conversation where that can be called a conversation. The other podcast, the most popular of a podcast, spread things like are there ghosts or not, ghost experiences, Yeti, and all of that.
uh, listen, the end of the day, in my case, it would not be fair to put me there, is because listen, I made my money.
Mm,
I don't know how else to say this, which is why every young kid I meet, I tell them, भूखे पेट भजन ना होवे गोपाला, पहले पेट भर अपना, पहले पैसा कमाओ. So in my case, I was so clear in my, and this is one thing I always had very good level of clarity as a kid. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to make money. So I made money. Then I made money, and then I took the risk and the jump. If I would not have made money, which is good enough money in my brain for me to live a decent life, I would have never become any of this. Indian podcasting, by and large, is driven by only one motto: clicks.
mm,
Uh, if that is what is getting clicks, that is what is going to be presented. Today, I don't want to take names because I don't like taking names. I know this for a fact that, in terms of numbers, not in terms of content, the top 2, 3 Indian podcasters have like a giant team of like 20, 30 researchers that research for them what, if they spoke, would get clicks. See, when your barometer is that मैं इसके बारे में बात करूंगा और उससे engagement होगा, then you are basically feeding to the mob, right? You are basically going and asking the mob, ki, what do you want? And the mob always lynches. The mob has no intelligence. The mob, not the crowd, the mob. And Indian podcasting right now is at that stage. And I think it's a culmination of multiple factors. One of them would be we are a poor society. So poor societies, the Maslow's pyramid, our demands are different. So people who want to consume content, their demands are very different. As and when India becomes richer, all this that is going on in the podcasting sphere, Anwesh, all of this is going to go. ये 10 साल के अंदर जब see, I mean, at least I feel the Flynn effect has not been proven wrong scientifically. I
mm.
have not seen any criticism of the Flynn effect worth its weight. And I am someone who reads consistently about these things in social sciences. The Flynn effect is real. In another 10 years, our IQ points are going to increase by 4 or 5 as a society.
Yes.
Boss,
Now that
80 to,
we don't have that high an IQ point anyway, average.
yeah, even if you look at the statistical miscalculation, it's not 77.6 right now. It will not be more than 81.
Mm,
That's also not impressive. Once you start reaching the range of 85, 86 is when you get that critical mass of people who are like, ये क्या बकवास कर रहा है? ये क्या बोल रहा है? Have you noticed, because the diaspora is way more high IQ than the Indians in India? I mean, nobody can deny that because it's a selection bias, right? हमारे smart लोग बाहर गए. बेसिकली जितने भी हमारे स्मार्ट लोग थे वो सब बाहर चले गए, बिकॉज इंडिया में अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं थी. सो बाय शेयर स्टेटिस्टिकल वेरिएंस दे आर स्मार्टर देन अस. द डायस्पोरा ऑन एवरेज इज स्मार्टर देन अस. तो डायस्पोरा में क्या चलता है वो देखो. डायस्पोरा की डिमांड क्या होती है. डायस्पोरा अमित वर्मा को सुनेगा, मुझे सुनेगा, हम जैसे लोगों को ज्यादा सुनता है डायस्पोरा. वहां पे आईक्यू हाई है. इंडिया में आईक्यू लो है. मगर 10 साल के अंदर देखना ये चेंज हो जाएगा. आई डोंट. एंड आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु आर वाचिंग दिस भूत आया या वो वीडियो तकलिया 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 ऑफ वशीकरण, राइट. Like I also watch it for entertainment.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so stupid. I mean, at the end of the day, I also want to laugh, right? I also want to laugh. I think people are just like, do you think people who watch Dinchak Puja, they think she's some great rapper or singer?
Obviously not. Or Tahir Shah,
Yeah, so
the
they
other
just watch it
Pakistan.
for it. I think most Indians are watching these people for entertainment because Indians on average have such a tough life, right? Because
Hmm.
बस में ट्रैवल करना, मेट्रो में ट्रैवल करना, इतना गंदा एयर पोल्यूशन में रहना बड़े शहरों में, या गांव में एकदम मुश्किल लाइफ जीना. यार उसके बाद घर में आकर भी मैं वही घटिया डिस्कशन सुनूं, ये तो नहीं होगा ना यार. दे वांट टू. आई थिंक विच इज व्हाई इंडियन सिनेमा इज ऑल अबाउट सस्पेंशन ऑफ रियलिटी. नोटिस करो हमारा. सी यू आर मच मोर ऑफ अ मूवी बफ देन आई एम. लाइक आई हैव
Hmm.
नोटिस हाउ मच यू कमेंट ऑन मूवीज. आई डोंट वॉच मूवीज. गिल्टी एज चार्ज. आई डोंट वॉच सिनेमा. बट आई नो यू लव सिनेमा. सो वॉट इज आवर सिनेमा? टेल मी, इज इन इट सस्पेंशन ऑफ रियलिटी बाय एंड लार्ज?
Yes, and I love it.
So why do you watch it? Because you're like, tension nahi. Like what the hell? I did not understand RRR. Why was RRR a hit? It was such a stupid movie in my eyes because I was trying to rationalize RRR. And my
Yeah,
my
that's
friends were like,
ridiculous.
just my friends were like, just embrace
Yes.
the beauty. And I was like, how do I embrace this? It's not worth embracing. And they're like, Kushal, this is your problem. You can't let go of rationality. You try to rationalize everything. Just let go. And then I was like, okay, maybe you guys are making sense and I'm not able to let go. I let go in Andaz Apna Apna, and I
Hmm.
love it. I let go in Gunda, and I love it. But I could not let go in RRR for some odd reason, right? That jumping human going all the way, I just was like, ये क्या कर रहा है यार? क्यों कर रहा है तू? That kind of a thing. But I understand that. So I don't begrudge them in that sense. But yes, I have a very disappointed, dejected look at Indian podcasting. I I expect more from them. I believe many of them are super smart
Hmm.
but are sometimes constricted by the demands of the market. I'm being very serious. Like I know few of them, they're very sharp, but and some of them are just incapable
Yeah,
of
yeah.
producing good content. Some of them just don't know things, and they are there at the right place at the right time, and they've cracked the code, and they're just a face, and somebody else is running the show. And but there are some who are genuinely smart. And whether the dumb ones or the smart ones, I always say I have love for all of them, and I hope Indian podcasting grows.
Yes, well, I think there is always a market for this sort of content that makes, because sheer virtue of us being so many people, this even the minority is a huge number. Even the minority is a huge market, and I'm saying is that market has not been explored of uh, people who would actually watch reasonable conversations has not been explored as much as it should have, and it's waiting there to be exploited.
It is. I think it's a bit of both, right? It's a bit of the current market. The people who are there, they are not even introduced to the concept of podcasting in many cases. And once they are, then the resistance, 2 घंटा कौन सुनेगा, 1 घंटा कौन सुनेगा, that is the second resistance. And eventually, I don't know. I think we'll find our way. Like, people
Yeah.
like Amit and I have found a way to sustain ourselves, right? So I'm sure there'll be others who will find a way to sustain themselves also. But beyond a point, I feel even in the Western world, only 5% podcasts are successful who are making money. The other 95% are just podcast is like, a glass in the entire dinner set. You see what I'm trying to say as an
Yeah, yeah,
analogy? So
yeah.
they're a larger media house. Now we have to have a podcast. How many people watch it is immaterial. It's like that.
Mm.
Only 5% of American podcasting is really serious. Like Joe Rogan. I don't know if Joe Rogan is serious or not serious, but he is what he is. And I love Joe for
He's
him being a
curious.
no, no, he's genuinely curious. He's
Yes.
genuinely curious. एंड लेक्स फ्रीडमैन है, फिर डैन कार्लिन जो हिस्ट्री की पॉडकास्ट करता
Mm.
है, सैम हैरिस, आई एम अ पेड मेंबर ऑफ सैम हैरिस, आई एम अ पेड मेंबर ऑफ माइकल शर्मर सबस्टैक, and many such people who are
Saint Carol has a good podcast.
yeah, he's there. All the mainstream ones I've stopped listening, like Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, Pod Save America, the Young Turks. I don't listen to any of them anymore. I just got fed up, yeah. Same
Yeah.
culture war, Roj, wahi culture war. It's boring. I still listen to Rogan on and off,
Mm.
Lex Friedman on and off, Sam Harris. The one I listen to the most is Michael Shermer.
Mm.
I mean, the man has taught me so much. And उनको मैं बहुत सुनता और पढ़ता हूँ. बाकी बाकी I've um, nowadays I'm obsessed back to my audiobooks obsession. I'm listening to great courses again on Audible. I've gone back to great courses. I think I because of my last year was so busy because of the book, right? Because then the reading suffers, because when the book you're writing, then the writing is more, the reading is more focused on the book, then your recreational reading. So
Mm.
now I'm going back to recreational reading. So I'm listening to great courses and many other books on Audible, and I'm having a good time again. I'm happy now. Like I'm off the book now. I'm taking a break for 2-3 months before I start writing the next book again. And now I'm consuming my old school work again.
So, coming to the book, I wanted to start talking about the book by talking about the evolutionary origins of religion, which you write about. And it seems like you're more sort of sympathetic to Pascal uh,
Pascal Boyer.
Boyer's, yeah, Pascal
Yeah,
Boyer's model, Religion Explained. And give me a bit of time, and I'll explain to you what I think about that model, and then maybe you can uh,
sure. Go
tell me
ahead.
what you think. So his model, the explanation that he gives, the thesis that he has, is premised upon the idea of modularity, like a lot of evolutionary psychology. And so he argues that because of modularity, we have these intuitive inferential mechanisms which eventually lead to religion. But my problem with the framework of modularity in explaining this is modularity, or the modular processes, are domain specific. So you have a model that recognizes, for instance, triangle. And then you have another model which is domain specific to recognizing a square. Now, the one that can recognize a triangle cannot recognize a square, but at least it has to recognize the idea of the representation as a whole. And the idea of a model that recognizes representation as a whole instead of being domain specific is it that's how religion works. That's how religion works. And that's how our brain works. That's how Carol Edelman, a Nobel Prize winning biologist, talked about how when we are born, because of environmental stimuli, we change our brain. Our subventricular zone actually changes. And so there is no domain specificity here. Religion is a general thing. And so this model, which presents religion as being something that evolves from modularity, fails to recognize the fact that religion is general because it's not about one thing, it's about so many things. And Boyer admits that religion is complex, but he does not address this point.
So first of all, do you think religion is an adaptation or is it an exaptation?
I'm not sure of that. I
Okay.
think it's a byproduct. I don't think it's an adaptation. I don't,
So
that's unlikely to be an adaptation.
so if it so good. So there we agree that, so for the benefit of the listener or the viewer, adaptation would be something where a feature in the evolutionary history of our species or any species is produced directly for the use of a specific function, right? Let's say the most common example given in all evolutionary textbooks is bats and echolocation, right? That's an
Mm,
adaptation, we would agree.
mm.
Okay, so that's an adaptation. Now, an exaptation would be in the realm of natural selection, would be uh, something that piggybacks off an adaptation and starts doing something else. The best example of an exaptation would be wings, feather, basically, right?
Mm.
Because feathers initially were an adaptation for insulation, right? That's what they say, right? In evolutionary biology, they say originally the wings had come ki insulation के लिए आए थे. And then uh, when the wings were created, the species was like, hang on, खुद ही मारते हैं, ऐसे ऐसे करते हैं, देखते हैं क्या होता है. So wings were never evolved for flying or for, guiding yourself in the air. Wings had evolved for insulation, but in the longer time frame of evolution, somebody piggybacked on it at an evolutionary scale, and then they started using it for something else. If religion is that, religion was not a direct evolution in that sense to solve a direct problem. Religion is a byproduct of our evolutionary history. If that is the case, religion is only going to be solving proximate problems, which are domain specific. So, how is Pascal Boyer wrong?
Give an example.
For example, uh, what is the primary purpose of religion? The primary purpose of religion is to fill in the gaps of our cognitive blind spots. The
Okay.
cognitive blind spots are never universal. The cognitive blind spots are so domain specific. The cognitive blind spots of the Papua New Guineans will be very different of the cognitive blind spots of the Mumbaikar, right? But religion can fill in both the blind spots by giving domain specific answers. Now, you might say they are irrational answers. I'm not saying whether
Mm.
they are rational or irrational. Rationality or irrationality comes at a much later stage. But religion definitely is filling that domain specific gap, which is why I thought Pascal Bouillet actually made the most sense. Remember where he says religion is minimally counterintuitive. That is a very profound point that he made because it's not counterintuitive. At times, religion makes no sense, but it is minimally counterintuitive. And when it is minimally counterintuitive, it fills that gap that we have. Like, the classic argument that people say, oh, you can find community in a sports game. Yeah, 55% of sports audience are religious people. Religion is not there because of that. Sport, by and large, is a right-wing religious thing. Religious people indulge in sport way more than irreligious people. Religion gives you that societal anchor, and that anchor seeking, that spandrel that we talk about, spandrels, which are classic examples of exaptations at the evolutionary level. Those spandrels are very different at different stages of life. For some, it is just like an anchor where I can park my boat and suspend my belief and say, hey, Bhagwan, ab tu hi bacha le. Like that person, don't you think that person knows Bhagwan usko bachane nahi wala hai? It's just a coping mechanism at that time. At that time, religion or the faith in the divine, because faith in the divine directly stems from religion. You cannot separate the faith in the divine and religion. I know nowadays this useless trope of spiritual but not religious is going on. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Spiritual is part of religion. It's a subset. It's a subset of the supraset. So th- every time you look at these anchors, you are actually suspending your belief in a different way. So to say that religion is not an exaptation, it is not domain specific, is actually, to me, it makes no sense because it does is that at that level. But I'm happy to be corrected if you explain it in a different way to me.
So, one of the things that Boyer says this is because he discounts all the explanatory arguments for religion, that religion did not evolve to answer any questions. But he does mention, and this is a topic that he does not explore because I don't think it had gained traction by then. So he does mention fear, which to me seems to have played a lot of a major role in our evolution of religion. Just in the general byproduct story, the hyperactive agency detecting device, the reason it evolved
Yes.
is because of fear.
Yes.
So, so Boyer gives the example of Fang people, and he argues that the idea of an afterlife, dead spirits or ghosts, uh, is not because of fear, because the Fang people worship dead spirits. But he also mentions that the Fang people run away when they see dead spirits. Now, the reason that the Fang people give to themselves of why they're running away, or if it's because of bad order or whatever, does not mean anything, because that impulse is basically happening because they are afraid. It is fear. So it is plausible, as the terror management theorists claim, what that death anxiety could have had a significant role, at least, in the evolution of religion.
I think it's not fear that is the word I would agree with. I think it's uncertainty. I think what you're looking at is the answers we're seeking for are from from the uncertainty of our existence. And religion fills in those gaps. Because at a cognitive level, we want certainty. Or do we agree on that? Because certainty is more comforting.
Yeah, yeah.
Uncertainty is very cognitively disturbing. So I think fear is the wrong word. I think certainty and uncertainty are the driving factors. Assurance, if you want to be even more accurate, I think is assurance. So what religion is, religion as a meme is that
But
elder.
uncertainty leads to fear.
I agree. But fear is one of the things that uncertainty leads to. Uncertainty leads to many emotions. Religion deals with many of those emotions, not just fear. So fear is a necessary, not sufficient condition. It's a necessary trait, not a sufficient trait. So what religion is that elder who comes to you and थपथपाता है तुम्हारी पीठ, पुत्र टेंशन ना ले, मैं हूं ना. And religion at a cognitive level is giving us that assurance that तू चिंता ना कर, मैं देख लूंगा. या मैं ऐसा पैदा हुआ, मेरी ही गलती होगी. And now you might say, what a bad reason to believe. Anvesh, we are not justifying anything. We are
Mm.
just saying what happens at a cognitive level. What is religion doing? It is giving us assurance. Assurance in horrible ways, if you were to ask me, at many times. Horrible assurances, like the worst kind, which leads to misogyny, patriarchy, and many other things. But the point is, it is doing that. So it's not fear. Fear is a very small subset of that. It's more the idea of getting up in the morning and being assured enough to be encouraged to go and explore something else is also there. It does not just drive fear, it drives inspiration also. Religion inspires you to do something because religion makes you so humble. Just think about it. Religion, at its epistemic, ultimate level, tells you to be humble, that there is something much more divine and greater than you. You are a mere speck in this entire Brahman. All religions do that, by the way. All religions do. And in different ways. And so it is not just out of fear. It is out of uncertainty. And that uncertainty leads to a cognitive need of assurance. And religion gives you that assurance. Um, the classic being in Maharashtra, we have that, I think, Swami Samarth Wale, where they have that famous quote that is there in every Swami Samarthwala, and people who from Maharashtra can correct me. It always says in every car, "Bhiu nakos mi tuja patishi ahe." Like, don't fear, I am always there behind your back, looking after you. Religion is that. That's what it does. So it's not giving you dealing with your fears. It is dealing with your uncertainty, and that is a giant difference. Fear is a subset of that uncertainty.
If you look at the specific stories that are available in all religions, the myths and the stories, a major similarity that they seem to have is the idea of an afterlife, the idea that you're going to live after you die. And that holds a significant appeal because all religions are sort of organized around some part of death. Death is a major part of the religion. And I would say that the idea of a divine deity consoles you and does all that you said, but it perhaps distracts you. What you're calling inspiration, perhaps it is a distraction from the existential fear of non-being.
Well, just like what RRR does to you, religion does to people at a large scale.
Yes.
This is so. My counter to that would be, and the problem is, like, I don't watch RRR, you don't play religion. Many people watch RRR and many people do religion. It's a need that. Am I saying it's an ideal need? Clearly, RRR sucks as far as I'm concerned, right? And you might say religion sucks as far as you're concerned. I'm saying is that different people, different strokes for different folks is all I'm saying. I'm least bothered about the proximate level need. I'm only looking at it from the ultimate level function. I'm just giving you the what's happening. I'm not
Hmm.
telling you whether it is good or whether it is bad. I don't clearly do it. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit in judgment of what others are doing simply because I I just don't see a better alternative to it. Is because we I mean, in my opinion, in the book I show them when you smash the old gods, they just go back to the baseline again in a very weird sort of way, in the new way, but they go back to the baseline again and they seek some sort of assurance again. They just, you park your existence. See, we all have existential angst. Would you agree to that? We all have
Yeah.
existential angst. All
Yeah.
of us. Theistic, atheistic, agnostic, whatever. We all have existential angst. And we are coming up with ideas to deal with this existential anxiety by saying, in my case, okay, when I'm die, it's game over. So now let me maximize my current existence by trying to be the best human being I can be possible. That is my way of dealing with my existential anxiety. Uh, Somebody else might be like, I will go around and fuck the whole world over. That is their way of dealing with their existential anxiety. With religious people, it is, God, I need you. That is their way of dealing with their existential anxiety. And it is what it is. I am not getting very prescriptive with this, like, oh, but you should not do this. I'm As long as they don't tell me to do what I'm supposed to do, I'm fine. Like, I'm a more leave me alone kind of a person. I'm more libertarian that way.
I'm wondering what you think of the parasite stress theory and its ideas about the origins of religion, because discuss sensitivity obviously plays a major role in all the religions of the world through the
Purity and
idea of
pollution,
purity and
right?
purity and pollution. And so parasite stress theory, Randy Thornhill argues that because we have evolved a closed culture, for instance.
Yes.
Most people evolve a closed culture because they're afraid of outsiders, because outsiders bring with them different diseases and you clearly don't have immunity to those. And that religion evolved as a mechanism to ensure that you organize yourself into a group and ensure that outsiders don't come in. It's a byproduct of that.
And I have no disagreement with that. That Purity and
Okay.
pollution is a very, very important segment of religion. And how can I prove that? By the latest religion in town, which has all the purity and pollution characteristics that all religions have. Look at wokeism. Don't you think wokeism has purity and pollution too? They just do it at the intellectual level. They have intellectual purity and pollution, right? Or now they have symbols of purity in American universities. The kafia, right now is a symbol of purity, and the Star of David is the symbol of pollution. It's
You could
all
say
around
it's
us.
the other way around. I
Oh
don't think,
yes,
for
ah
instance,
yes,
that the people who are protesting for Israel are
yeah,
not afflicted with wokeism or
abs-
whatever. They,
absolutely,
did you see the videos of the kids who were crying at
yes,
the protest?
yeah.
And they weren't crying for any logical reason, by the way. There was a protest there, and they were crying, and they were like, "These people are going to kill." That is wokeism. That is the coddled mind.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. Which is why I'm saying that purity and pollution is a very integral part of the religious experience, because tribalism is a very integral part of human existence. And how do you rationalize your tribalism? One of the most important aspects of rationalization of your tribalism is through purity and pollution exercises. Now,
Mm,
somebody might say, oh, no, but at that time, at the evolutionary timescales, these people were doing it because, I mean, if you ate a pig, somebody must have died. So they were like, no, pig is bad because pigs were not so edible at that point of time. I'm just giving a hypothetical. Or in the case of India, the cow became such an asset that eventually eating of the cow became just untenable. Okay, I agree with all of that, but today the same behavior is now using as an exaptation because that damn mindset is so ingrained in our mental framework that now we use purity and pollution in different ways. Like, how similar are human behavioral patterns that, when you join a new religious cult, they make you sign or recite a kalma, right? Or some sort of a prayer, right? Uh, like a Muslim would say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadar Rasulullah, the kalma. The Christians would say something else. The Hindus might chant something else. And the Vokias make you sign the diversity, equity, inclusion statement. That's their kalma now. It's so funny. But the point is, my whole point is, साले हम ऐसे ही हैं. हम घूम फिर के भगवान और ना भगवान हम ऐसे ही हरकतें करते हैं. That's what I'm trying to say. So हमारी हरकतें, all roads lead to the one inevitable place, religion, which sucks. But I'm just saying I'm embracing the madness. My book is basically saying it's good, it's bad, it's inevitable. So if
mm,
it's inevitable, let me learn how to deal with it in the most rational way possible. That's what I'm trying to say in my. You're talking about chapter 3 because I knew you would focus on chapter 3 the most because that's where you would be interested. Because 1 and 2 is something that, you might not see. The reason I wrote 1 and 2 was that I wanted to explain to people what atheism is. I'm sure by now you must have realized how stupid people are that they don't know what atheism is.
yeah.
They don't know it is a negation. And then they're like, negation kya hota hai? And then I have to explain what a negation is. And that's why, atheism by itself is not a belief in anything. Atheism is just a negation of somebody else's belief. Now, to that, my dear friend Harsh says, but then how do you explain Atal Bihari Vajpayee's line, which was a very good line in a lecture where he addressed Pula Deshpande about Savarkar. And he
Mm,
said, unki nastikta mein bhi astikta hai, which is a very nice line that
yeah.
Atalji used. कि हमारी negation of दूसरों की belief में भी एक belief है. But I don't know what is that belief because I can't explain that belief.
Jordan Peterson says it a lot about Christians, that, Sam Harris is a Christian, or all of these people are Christian because uh, he redefines the term to pull people that agree with his sort of worldview, classical liberalism, into Christian. Tom Holland also does that in Dominion.
Yeah, Tom Holland is and Jordan Peterson are not someone I I agree with a lot on many things. Like, I think Eric Weinstein explained Jordan Peterson's epistemology the best. He said, "You agree with Jordan a lot until there is the Jesus smuggling." so, so Jordan has a way where he's like ऐसे 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 करते हैं और फिर एक गूगली आ जाएगी और वो गूगली है जीसस जीसस आ जाएगा. I think it's not Jesus. If Jordan was fair and
Hmm.
Jordan said religion, not
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
then I'm with Jordan. Then I'm with Jordan as a honest intellectual interlocutor.
He does not,
Then,
because he despises, polytheism or whatever. He calls
yeah,
wokeism polytheistic religion, and that climate change activists are polytheistic, and everyone he does not like are child worshipping polytheistic monsters. He has an idea that monotheism is the most evolved religion, polytheism is primitive.
yeah. Clearly, he has a very bad idea, is all I can say. Which is why I always say that I never understood. Like, I always say this, like, I guess kids have a lot of daddy issues. And and it's okay. बच्चों को daddy issues होते हैं, and if Jordan is solving those daddy issues for Gora bachas, so be it. And I'm just happy about that. I'm happy about that. And as long as kids are getting their lives sorted, and kudos to Jordan for that. I think Jordan has helped a lot of young children, but I don't understand the Jesus smuggling, is all I can say. I don't get the Jesus smuggling, but I get everything else other than that. Everything else other than that. सब कुछ समझ आता है मेरे को.
If you look at, I thought you'd focus a bit, at least, on the beginning of monotheism as a whole compared to polytheism in the third chapter, uh, because that is an interesting story. Because all monotheistic religions seem to come from polytheistic religion, which is why Jordan has the idea that he has.
Mm,
But if like Judaism is the best example of that. Old Testament is not a monotheistic text as a whole. There are books in the Old Testament which affirm the existence of other gods. And there are different gods in Old Testament, because when the Jews and the Israelites and the Babylonians fought, that is when the story of Moses comes in, and the God of the Moses, Yahweh, does not appear before that. It's El Shaddai or Elohim who appears, and Yahweh
mm,
says to Moses that he is the Elohim, but he was a new God. He was a combination of the Babylonian God, the Marduk, and the old God, which is Elohim.
mm. Well, the reason I didn't do that is because I don't think so. It was like integral to the message I wanted to give in my book.
Mhm.
In like, and listen, I had to pack everything in like 70 to 80,000 words. So मैं कितना डालता था ना? Like, if you ask me what is my biggest regret in my book, my biggest regret is not having at least a subsection on Perriarism and criticizing it. I think I've made a blunder, if you ask me. I think if somebody asks me, Kushal, what is the biggest blunder of your book? And you might find it hard to believe, and you might think, क्या बकवास reason है ये? और मैं भूल गया. मैं literally भूल गया. When I was writing chapter 5, right, one of the things I should have done in chapter 5 was the complexity of Indian society. I wanted to have a subsection titled, well, Perriarism is no solution. Because Indian rationalism, because that's what they call themselves, rationalists, is the most irrational movement. It has misogyny in it, it has bigotry in it has casteism in it has sexism in it has all bad traits of Indian society in it. It's just horrifying.
But I don't think they're representative of the Indian rationalist movement. I think Indian rationalism is
Okay,
is
who is
much.
the representative? Who is the
I don't think
representative?
anyone is a representative. I think
ऐसे
there
नहीं
are
होता.
people.
They are the
May
largest number of rationalists.
I don't even consider them rationalists. They're
अरे वो
not.
तुम्हारे बोलने से क्या होता है, मगर वो तो बोलते हैं ना.
They're our religion. They're a religion. They're like Stalinism or whatever. It's like saying Stalin was a rationalist. So, I mean, he was an atheist, sure. They claim to be atheists, and most of them are not atheists, by the way. Most of the believers in Peria rights, but they are they have a god, and that god is Periyar, or that god is whatever Tamil superiority ideology that they have. So it is a religion. It's a religion.
Yes, I agree. And it's inevitable. That's all that happens in the end. All roads lead to human beings doing this, what I call irritating and obnoxious behavior of congregating together and behaving in absurd manners, having absurd rituals. And that's the whole idea, which is why I think the the next 20 years of my life is going to be, can we find a better solution to religion?
You
That's
know,
that's
I
that.
have. This is why I've always disagreed with Christopher Hitchens when he says that, if religion goes away, all of our problems is going to be solved.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think that. I think the world will be just as good or just as bad with or without religion, because religion is a symptom of a larger problem.
absolutely, absolutely. And it is never gonna go away. It is always going to stay here. It's just the baseline of human existence post agriculture. In fact, even pre agriculture, it is the baseline of human existence, because there is so many unanswered things that our brain is just not able to answer. And just because there are like a 1% of planet Earth that are scientists who try to figure the world out in a scientific way, to assume that the rest of humanity is going to do it is itself irrational. Like how Paul Bloom says, right? Religion is the smartest way to make sense of the world, in the sense of, I don't have all the answers, but ye hoga, chal, main answer de raha hu. Science is another science is a much smarter way of solving those problems, right? But religion is doing the same function, albeit in a very misguided way at times. But the point is, I think Paul Bloom was right.
So another argument that you make towards the end of the chapter is morality and religion, or being moral without religion. And
Mm.
you seem to advocate for some sort of objective moral pluralism.
Yes.
And this is partly what Sam Harris says, that there are many good answers, right answers to this question, and many wrong answers to this question, but there are right and wrong answers.
Yeah.
And that seems to me to be a good model. But I also, I'm also thinking whether uh, morality can be categorized in those terms, because I'm not sure if we're making a category error here. Because when someone says "you shall not kill," is that right or wrong? So if I tell you to go open the door, that is not a right or wrong statement. It is a command. It does not
Yeah.
have an objective right or wrong value. And "you shall not kill" is probably a command uh, statement like that, which as a category cannot be figured in terms of right and wrong.
So here's where, in my opinion, you are making a mistake. When you say, what was the first analogy you gave? Open the door, right?
Hmm.
So every so there is a first order effect, and then there is a second order effect, right? A command has a first order effect. The first order effect is I am opening the door. The second order effect is I am opening the door, and then there is a thief on the other side of the door. What morality is interested in is in the second order effect. What happens after you open the door? Secondly, in the case of thou shall not kill, it's a very
Hmm.
different command. Thou shall not kill involves, this command involves a direct harm, even at the first order effect. Forget what happens in the second order effect. The first order effect itself of thou shall not kill is cessation of life. Now you might say, but who is to say cessation of life is a bad thing? Well, it is, because the sole purpose of our current form, whether you are in living in a simulation, as many nowadays Nick Bostrom fans and I call them the children of Nick Bostrom seem to suggest that we are living in a simulation now. Simulation hypothesis has gained a lot of credence these days in the podcasting landscape. Is that we still are in the process of what we like to call replication of genes. Now, if we are in the replication of genes business, then survival is kind of embedded in our mimetic framework itself. So, thou shall not kill does have a first order problem, which open the door does not. Now, there in moral philosophy, there are emotivists. Are you aware of what emotivism is?
No, explain.
Okay, so emotivism is like it's a theory, ethical theory. वो कौन है वो ब्रिटिश लड़का है जिसने अभी सैम हैरिस से बात की थी, कॉस्मिक स्केप्टिक, वो इमोटिविस्ट है
Alex
एक्चुअली.
O'Connor. Alex O'Connor. Yeah.
हाँ, वो इमोटिविस्ट है. सो वो क्या बोलेगा कि एक सो एन एथिकल थियरी वुड बी
Yes.
it will have value judgments as expression, right,
Mm-hmm.
of feeling or attitude or
Yes.
this is like something of that sort. They are not assertions, they are expressions. समझ रहे हो?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is something of that sort. You're being an
Yes.
emotivist,
Yes.
right? You're
Yes.
being an emotivist. Now, in my case, it makes no sense because the difference starts happening at the command base itself. Because the feeling of opening the door and the feeling of killing one, using emotivism as a baseline expression, is not the same. Because the net result of thou shall not kill and the net result of go open the door are extremely different on the moral
But you
landscape.
don't judge whether there's the result, the statement itself is right or wrong based on its consequences. That you don't judge whether there's a phone here by whether uh the phone is going to lead to do something or not. You just see if there's a phone here or not. And so you seem to be talking about consequences. You're talking about the effects, and I'm saying the effect here does not matter because for it to be objectively true, perhaps it has to stand by itself without any effect.
But there is an effect. My point is, you cannot ignore the effect. Opening the door also has an effect. Should you open the door or not? You have to deal with that answer. I'll give you a thought experiment. Anne Frank is inside your house, or forget Anne Frank. Samir and Abdul are inside your house, and there is a Muslim and Hindu lynch mob that are outside your house. And somebody gives you the instruction, go open the door. Should you open the door or not?
Oh,
Why? I
because
mean, you
of
should not
the
care,
consequence.
right? Because immediately your brain is going into the next level. If you are an emotivist, you should not care because it doesn't matter what your feelings are. It is just a feeling. But you are already attributing values to those feelings, whether you're an emotivist or an objectivist.
I am, but I'm not talking about that. It doesn't matter whether I attribute value to it or not. What matters is whether this statement by itself stands.
Actually,
The,
it
you,
does matter. The only thing that matters is whether what
it
happens at the
matters
end.
on a human level, sure, but
And that's
as a
what we are doing. My morality is not a tool for me of looking at what is. Morality to me is a tool of what could be.
Hmm.
We don't create a moral verse for dealing with what could be or sorry. We do not create a moral universe to deal with what is. We create a moral universe to deal with what could be. So moral objectivism is the best way to deal with what could be, is because if the prime and sole object of our existence is to replicate our genes, and all these games that we are playing at the level is for pure replication, and empathy and sympathy for others is part of that game that we are playing, then I want to play the best game possible. And
so
objectivism is just a better game.
so how do you determine what's the criteria that you have for determining universally?
Harm principle and human flourishing.
Um, but a utility, but human flaw when there are moral dilemmas, because that is exactly when morality matters. What does
Yes,
human flourishing mean in the trolley problem when you have to kill one person to save four, for instance? So are
you
you going to
clearly
go with the
you,
utilitarian answer?
in that situation you clearly go with the saving four people. And then you will come up with me and say, what if that one person is your son? And all hell breaks loose. And that's the classic case of moral dumbfounding, which Jonathan Haidt talks about. Yeah, just because there are no good answers doesn't mean there are no good answers. There are answers, we are just uncomfortable with them. I'm sure you know
But
about
you
moral
think those
dumbfounding.
answers are good.
Those are provisionally good.
So your moral objectivism is not embedded in ontology.
No, my moral objectivism is embedded in the provisionalism, which is why I say it's plural, it's flexible. My moral objectivism is a plural, objective moral pluralism, right? It's a moral pluralism, but it is based in some objective standards. At that situation, as per the best available evidence, this is the best possible way of living your life for for the enhancement of human flourishing. Moral relativism clearly does not do that, and emotivism is just escapism. Emotivism is objectivists who don't have the courage to say this is right or wrong. I don't know how else to say it. Emotivists are basically pattu objectivists. They are objectivists in every way possible. They just don't want to be that. So I'm just standing up in the class and saying, yeah, let me be the bad guy. I am an objectivist. I'm saying it is well. Well, how do you
Mm.
prove it? Well, how do you prove it? It is not. And how
Yeah,
does it matter? How does it matter is my question. Does an emotivist not care for human flourishing? They do. Does
yeah.
an emotivist not care for enhancement of humanity? They do. Then let's stop pretending. Let's play the game. Just like, free will determinists do. Oh, because the universe after the Big Bang is going in one direction, so it doesn't matter. There is no free will. तो क्या करूं मैं? मेरे को proximate level पे बता मेरे को ये game कैसे खेलनी है? मेरा question to Sam Harris in that, because Sam disagrees. I disagree with Sam at that level. I'm more Dan Dennett there. I'm a
Mm.
compatibilist, right? Like, I think, to use Michael Shermer, every time Sam Harris
Did you
does
read
that,
Sapolsky's recent book?
yes, I did. I did.
What
And
did
I
you think?
disagree with Sapolsky too. I think whether it's Sapolsky or Sam Harris, I think they commit the classic mistake of what Michael Shermer calls. Do you know what Michael Shermer said when he explained Alvin? So yeah, so are you aware of the Alvey's error of Michael Shermer that he has spoken about?
Not that I can remember.
So I'll read his article, just two paragraphs. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of this discussion, right? People make this mistake. I think they make this error when they discuss whether it's free will or whether it's these issues.
Mm.
So I'm reading directly from michaelshermer.com, published February 2018. Science reveals our deepest purpose. In a flashback scene in the 1977 film Annie Hall, Woody Allen's character Alvy Singer is a depressed young boy who won't do his homework, as he explains to his doctor, quote, the universe is expanding. Well, the universe is everything, and if it's expanding, someday it will break apart, and that will be the end of everything. His exasperated mother upbraids the youth, quote, what has the universe got to do with it? You're here in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is not expanding. Call it Alvy's error. Arthat, assessing the purpose of something at the wrong level of analysis. The level at which we should assess our actions is the human timescale of days, weeks, months, and years, our lifespan of fourscore plus or minus 10, not the billions of years of the cosmic calendar. Now let us extrapolate this to morality. Now let us extrapolate this to the discussion on free will and determinism. And everything is basically being done in this classic Alvy's error mode. We're just attributing it to a wrong level. We have to attribute it at a different level. At the ultimate level, yes, there is no free will. At the
Mm.
ultimate level of physics, maybe there is no free will, and we are just, you know, one thing after the other is happening. This podcast is also part of that. It was supposed to happen, that kind of a thing. But at the proximate level of your existence and my existence, we live our everyday life assuming we have free will. It's
But I don't
just
think that's a point that Sapolsky or Harris would necessarily disagree with.
they would. I mean, I don't know how much of what you have understood from there, but I think they think they don't make that problem because
Yeah,
always deny what Dan Dennett criticized them for. Dan Dennett's biggest fear, and I think that is one of my fears also, is denialism of compatibilism as far as free wills is concerned, or as Michael Shermer likes to call it, degrees of freedom. We have degrees of freedom, and compatibilism explains that beautifully, that at the level of the physical universe, yes, we may not have free will, but at the level of our individualistic existence, I think we all have some level of degree of freedom in what we are doing and how we are living. And I think that is not incompatible with the concept of free will in general. And similarly, at the realm of morality, at the ultimate level, maybe all that we are doing are just feelings and expressions, as an emotivist would say. But just because it is a feeling and ये क्या बोलते हैं, just because it is a feeling or expression uh, does not mean that we do not have a standard. We do have a standard. You know what the funny thing is? Even relativists have standards for their in group, right? Let's say there are 20 relativists, and all those 20 relativists believe that female genital mutilation, as per their some other culture, is fine, then it's their value. But all those relativists, what they're basically saying is female genital mutilation is wrong. We're just chicken shit. We don't want to call it wrong. That's all they're doing. They're just saying, वो लोग करते हैं, गलत करते हैं, मगर who am I to say it's wrong? But they're drawing a value judgment there too. They're saying it is wrong. They're just not courageous enough to call it wrong because they have some level of guilt or whatever. Or it's a coping mechanism where they know if they start calling other values wrong, somebody might
their
get
values
up.
would crumble down.
Yeah. And somebody might start questioning them, and you know and 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 questioning their values, and then they have to deal with the shit values that they have. You see what I'm trying to say?
I have no sympathy with the relativists, so you're speaking to the choir here. But
Yeah,
I do think that in this case, when you're talking about free will and stuff, it matters that we talk at the level of physicality as well. That
it
is
does.
what Sapolsky does, and that is his argument. He cites the example of the school shooters, Timothy McVeigh, and he says, obviously they're an asshole. Obviously their actions are wrong, but that does not mean that. But that doesn't mean that he is, as someone who does not believe in free will, is supporting, for instance, keeping McVeigh out of society. So
But I'm not saying Sapolsky does. My all I'm saying is, okay, Sapolsky, ठीक है, he is the way he is. In some cases, like Sam Harris gave the example of that guy who had the tumor in the
yeah,
front of
yeah,
the brain. And he wrote in a suicide note after he killed a bunch of people that check my head out. And lo and behold, when they checked his head out, he found a tumor there. Okay, fine. As far as Lebes's experiments are concerned, I'm sure you know Lebes's experiment have been falsified. You know
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
You know that. So we should not consider Lebes as an example. His experiment about
Yeah,
no free will.
Sapolsky discards
Yeah,
himself.
I know. Sapolsky discards. I don't know if you heard Sam's recent podcast with Sapolsky on his book.
No, I,
Uh,
I heard a little bit of it.
yeah. So
I
Sam
watched
and
his conversation with Dennett.
yeah. So I think Dennett, to me, got understood free will and its usefulness at its core level. Dennett was the most famous compatibilist. I don't know if you know, if you followed Dennett's work. I think,
Yeah,
to me, Dennett's approach to free will was more utilitarian. That was
it
the right
is.
way.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of understand that.
He gives the
Uh,
example of people running in a sports exam thing and how merit should be a thing and
Dennett
all.
talks about free won't, not just free will. You know that I think where I like Dennett had me was when he said, "Well, what about free won't? WONT apostrophe T. Like, what about free won't? Forget free will." And that's where I was like, huh. Otherwise, I was very much in the determinist camp, very much. It's only when I read Dennett and Michael Shermer that I changed my mind. And I think, as far as this is concerned, I think it's a more utilitarian approach, compatibilism, and I think it makes more sense. And to me, at least, it makes more sense. I listen. What am I going to fight with Sapolsky about? He's a brilliant scientist, and he's a great human being. I'm happy. If the world is full of Robert Sapolskys and Sam Harrises, the world is not going to be a bad place. Is all I can say. Well, if the world is full of Sam Harrises, it will be a slightly boring place because Sam is such a low key personality. Like, एकदम ठंडा आदमी है Sam.
Yeah, but I think we're talking at two different levels here. I think you are concerned with the consequences for on the issue of free will. Uh, well, I am saying that at the up point of physicality, free will does not exist.
Which is why I
And
pointed out to the Alves error because
I don't think those two are incompatible. I think you can believe in both those things. That, it would be maybe a better place if more people believe that they have the free will or whatever. At the same time, you believe that free will as an idea does not really exist
yeah.
because of chemical
See,
imbalances and
see,
molecules.
all I'm saying is once again, it is a wrong level of analysis because the level at which we should be analyzing free will or morality is at the level of our proximate existence, not at the level of the Brahmand or the universe, is what I'm saying. We're just putting it in a wrong level and saying, look, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, but what's the point? At the level of universe, our morality is not judged. Our
Yeah.
morality is judged at the level of our interactions. So what's the point is what I'm saying.
The
We're
point is
force
you want
fitting.
to know the truth. I think that's the point. The point
Well,
is you want to know.
the truth is our actions have consequences. The truth is that we should be focused, and this is where I learned from Sri Krishna. Focus on the karma, not in afterlife sense. Like karmane vadhikaraste. Forget about ma phaleshu kadachana. Forget that bit. Focus on karmane vadhikaraste. Focus on your proximate level of your actions. Then you will think about the ultimate level of the universe. The point is that everybody is like ऐसे क्यों करना वैसे क्यों करना अरे करना वही मैटर करता है क्योंकि सोसाइटी को वो ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस करता है now Robert Sapolsky might say no and you might say and I agree with you by the way in this sense you might say nahi Kushal because at the ultimate level our legal system should consider that we have no free will and it should change it, right? That's what you would come back to me and say. And
Hmm.
there I will agree with you because their rules are made at the ultimate level. So, yes, maybe while we formulate our rules, Sapolsky and Harris do have a point that if a person had a tumor, is that person guilty? That person can't even control it. So, the solution for this society's legal system would be to charge that person not guilty, treat that person, and put that person in a place where he can't harm others, right? That would
Hmm.
be the right
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
And I am in agreement with you. But my point is, we are discussing at different levels of analysis.
You also spend some time in your book talking about decoloniality and sometime in your podcasts because that is a virus that has swept the Indian right wing. Um,
Yes. I
and
won't say it
you,
has swept, but yeah, it is there.
it's more popular than you. You can't like I see more people
Yeah, yeah.
reading decoloniality and the
They don't know what it means. They just use the word. Let's be fair. Can,
they,
can,
I
can, can you point out to me 50 people who can steel man decoloniality?
sure, but the consequences are what matters. There's a reason they use this framework.
Yeah, yeah.
because it
100%.
provides them with the tools to negate caste. One of the
Yeah.
primary reasons.
One of the primary नहीं, it is the primary reason. One of the नहीं है, it is the primary reason. मतलब गोल गोल जलेबी वाली बात क्यों करनी, जो है सीधा बोलना चाहिए. It is the primary reason. The primary reason is they want to deny the atrocities committed by the Hindu society in the past, and they want to continue the evergreen status quo of privilege. Those are the two reasons. Nothing else. You're frozen again.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, so the reason is very simple, that they're very uncomfortable with the idea of admitting that their ancestors sucked, and their ancestors could
Hmm.
also do bad things. So they'll come up with arguments like, Nicholas Dirks's book Castes of Mind, as if I've not read it. The funniest bit is when people accuse me of not reading. Like I start laughing and cracking up when somebody accuses me of that. I think you can accuse me of many things, but not of not reading. Like I read Dharampal, I read Nicholas Turks, whatever was told, Bal Gangadhar, Heathen in His Blindness, and many other works. Like I've read all of them, and
Jacob de Roo.
yeah, Jacob de Roover and many others who have made these points. I've even read Quiano and Mignolo and Catherine Walsh, who are the theoreticians of
Yeah.
decoloniality. I've read them too. But my point is that listen, I always use this in the most colloquial sense. Decoloniality and post-colonialism are siblings who were separated in the Kumbh Mela. Is that decoloniality and post-colonialism are kind of Kumbh Mele ke bichde hue bhai behen, and they separated during the Kumbh Mela. And the underlying framework with which both of them see, all all darshanas, and I'm going to call post-colonialism and decoloniality a darshan. They work with epistemic framework, and that epistemology is postmodernism. And
Hmm.
postmodernism and postmodernism's epistemology is relativism and subjectivism. So they are subjectivist and relativist because they deny many things. And if you notice in my book, I quote ethical papers of decoloniality. It's a paper that was published by decolonialists, ethical authors. And I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Like, I mean, if that is the worldview they espouse, then why do decolonialists have a problem when I say then for decolonialists, bachabazi should be fine, which it should be fine, right? But they don't want to talk about it. And it's, listen, it's just an apologia. It's an apologia for my ancestors are awesome and they made no flaws. And I have no sympathy for that epistemology. I am going to attack that epistemology to the best of my ability, and I don't care who gets hurt in the process. I've That's not stopped me from attacking ideas and ideologies. I've never been a people pleaser anyway.
So one of the claims that the decolonialists seem to make is that you cannot really eradicate caste because it's been there for so I was listening to a lecture of J. Sai Deepak where
Hmm.
it was supposed to be on Ramayana, but for 1 hour he was basically defending the Varna Vyavastha and talking about its glories and how it kept society united or whatever. Uh, and there he was talking about how you cannot really eradicate caste because it's been there for so long and it's there in your in the Agama Sastras or whatever, and so you can't really annihilate it.
So I've not
You've
seen that
tried and
video.
you have
So
failed. You have tried and you have failed. So
first of all, I have not. See, I don't consider him to be the theoretician of decoloniality. So my attack on decoloniality was, if you notice, even in the book, is very little based on what he has said in his book, India That Is Bharat. Although I'm
no,
one of the
not that particular book, but he does use the decolonial framework for caste.
I mean, all I see as far as him using decoloniality is in his book India That Is Bharat, where he introduces the concept of decoloniality, and he has not yet thrown his robust framework. So, from what I have understood, see, I
Yeah.
don't know, I've not seen the video
Mm.
myself. So, from whatever you are saying here, my response to that, I'm assuming you're steel manning him, is that he's making the classical argument of caste is Lindy, Lindy, right? That's what he's
What
saying, right?
what's Lindy?
Lindy is that argument that was if something has lasted for so long,
Ah, okay.
eh,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
argument,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the prime Indian.
So, well, then slavery is also Lindy, right? Rape is also Lindy. Misogyny is also Lindy. Um, it's called the Lindy effect, Lindy, or Lindy's law, um, where it basically says that it's good because it lasted long. That's the indirect inference. Nassim Taleb also kind of does this a lot of times. I know a section of the Indian non-left is a huge fan and the giant fan of Nassim Taleb. I've actually, I think he's one of the most overrated thinkers going around. Him and Manu Pillai, one of the most
He has
overrated
blocked me,
writers.
by the way.
Well,
Taleb has
good.
blocked me.
I'm proud of you. If Nassim Taleb has blocked you, I am proud of you because the man, half of the times, he thinks belligerence is the answer for lack of intelligence. I think that is, he may be the greatest stock analyst and mathematician on planet Earth,
Mm.
but his understanding of social life is shit. Is all I can say. And nobody can accuse me of not reading Taleb. मैंने उसकी हर book चाट ली. जो भी बुक थी सब चाट ली मैंने उसकी. So I just don't agree with Nassim Taleb, and I find his entire persona so off-putting. Like, he thinks insulting people and being belligerent online is some sort of great deed that he's done. I mean, he can kiss my brown ass is all I can say. Um, but this entire argument of Lindy makes no sense to me because again, it stems from a great moral relativistic spectrum.
But decolonialists are relativist, even in India that is
They're
Bharat. Much,
subjectivists. They're
yeah, yeah,
subjectivists, not relativists.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and it's funny, right? They will say we are subjectivists. I was like, yeah, okay, relativism and subjectivism have minor differences. Can you tell me the similarity between relativism and subjectivism? And they're like, what is the similarity? Both of you deny that there is anything like the objective truth, right? Relativism is more at the level of individual, subjectivism is more at the level of groups, right? That's one of the differences between the two. And to me, this whatever argument you have given is very weak, is because it this argument can be used to justify all kinds of social evils. Like rape exists even today. It has existed since human existence has existed. Now, will I use that to justify rape and murder? There are objectively bad ideas. Caste is that objectively bad idea.
But to
And there is
steelman,
no,
yeah. So to
so no,
steelman him,
hmm.
he would argue that untouchability is probably bad, but the caste system as a whole is not bad because these groups have their own different cultures or ways of being or cuisines or people
Who's
to
stopping
worship.
them
So
from having cuisines? Is the insinuation here that if you do not have your jati identity, your cuisine will die? Is that the insinuation here? Like your cuisine is
it's
so
because of
dependent on your
those,
jati
it's
identity?
because of the belief in the texts or whatever that has kept that identity and that way of living a life. And that going into a modern industrial culture is going to kill that.
Okay, so if that is the argument, people who want to follow that lifestyle can follow it. People who want to have special genetic diseases by not marrying outside of their caste group and want to carry on having genetic diseases are free to have it. I should not, I certainly don't believe the state should mandate intercaste marriages or something. I don't believe that. But it clearly is a bad idea.
Hmm. We have
Clearly is a
genetic
bad idea.
evidence of that. We have genetic
Yeah.
evidence of that.
And I mean, people who believe in this are free to believe it. I don't want their freedom to be curtailed. I just want to have the freedom to call their ideas bollocks. That's all I'm saying. I think
Because
these are bad
it is.
ideas. That's all. That's
And
all I'm doing.
you also point out that castes have scriptural sanctions.
Oh, yeah, they do. See, not in the Rig Veda, which is very clear,
No, yeah.
but
I
in the
would maybe
Smritis.
you can argue that the Purusa Sekta is probably came much later than the earliest books of the Rig Veda. I think that argument can be seriously made. But
It
even
is.
then, yeah, but even
But
then,
see,
it doesn't really advocate for caste
the,
system as we know it.
yeah, see, first of all, all these people who, in fact, there is a section of Hindu reformists who hate discrimination, and kudos to them. I am on their side. But I think they make the classical error of saying, earlier on, there was only Varna. There was no Jati. I was like, there was only Jati first.
Yeah.
Varna came much later. And in fact, the problem with Jati starts with the system of Varna, which is why I always say we have to annihilate Jati Varna. And I never say we have to annihilate Jati. I have never said annihilate Jati because Jatis will always exist, right? Jatis are an integral part of human history. People misquote me when they say I want the annihilation of Jati. I never said that. All I said was I want the annihilation of Jati Varna because there is no system of Jati Varna without one or the other. And it eventually does become into a birth based system. There is no unicorn, Kumbaya, Varna, which is pure classification because Jati always existed. And then on this baseline of Jati comes the system of Varna, and it basically destroys the entire system. And yes, Varna is in Mandala 10, and there are the early books and the late books, and the best explainer of that is Srikant Talagiri, who has explained even the internal chronology of the Rig Veda. And boss, you cannot deny that Jati came first, Varna came later, and Jati Varna together is a problematic aspect of Hinduism. The difference between us and the decolonialists is they believe Jati Varna is the core of Hinduism.
Hmm.
It is the core and whole soul of Hinduism, and others say it is not. The reformists say no, it is not the core of Hinduism. That's where the battle lines are drawn.
Why would you
Nothing
want to reduce Hinduism to such a narrow system?
because
I
because they are the beneficiaries of that system. Nothing else could explain other than them being the historical beneficiaries of that system. And they will come up with bullshit answers like, oh, Brahmins had so many hardships imposed on them. I want to sit down with these people one day and read the entire Smriti textual pantheon, because one thing you cannot challenge me on is reading texts. I have read all of them. And I want to see an honest content analysis which shows how the Shudras get a better deal in the Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Parashar Smriti, or any other Gautami Dharma Sutra or any other sutra over the Brahmins. I want to see the evidence of that. Oh, they are not allowed to make money. Oh, they are allowed to get money through so many grants. What about that? The Smritis talk about that also, na?
not just the Smritis, they also ignore the fact that the Brahmins, a lot of them collaborated with the invaders and to get concessions and things like that, and they got grants from
That every
the
community
Mughal
did.
invaders.
I think every community did that. That is a human universal. Every community in the history of India has collaborated with the British at some point or the other, or with the Muslims at some point of the other, or previously with some other invader at some point or the other. You remember the 1857 uprising?
Hmm.
Which community collaborated with the British then? The Sikhs, right? They did not side with the uprising. They had their own rationale. During the time of the Maratha regiment, the Bengalis didn't like the Marathas. Why? Because the Marathas were taxing them. They went with the other side. So what? Bengalis are traitors now. The Rajputs didn't like the Marathas. The Marathas didn't like the Rajputs. Those were proximate differences based on taxation policy. Tripur talks about it in his book, right? The Maratha Rajput fault lines. Tripur talks about it in his first book, Tripur Daman Singh.
Yeah, yeah. I've
And
talked.
yeah, and these are real issues. I don't think that is a fair criticism, because every community somewhere down the line in its past has sided with one invader or the other for real political reasons. But I am interested in the
But it
theological
also
debate.
proves that the community was not divorced from realpolitik, as
Obviously.
there is a claim.
Obviously. Obviously, it was not divorced from real politics. To say it is a lie. To say itself is a lie. We've had a history of one community or the other. It's not the Sikhs, it's not the Hindus, it's not X community, it's not Y community, it's not the Jains, it's not the Buddhists. It's every community in India is going to be, or every Jati group in India is going to be real politically aware and alert. That's not the question here. My problem with decoloniality is it reduces the entire edifice of Hinduism to one third rated system of Jati Varna. I'm not talking about Jati, I'm talking about Jati Varna. Because there is no Varna without Jati,
Mm.
and vice versa. No Jati without Varna in the current form, which is why we should annihilate both of them, and we can come up with a new system of identities. I'm not saying we can live an identity less life. No, obviously we cannot. And I'm also not making the case for the destruction of rituals, because what makes Hinduism beautiful is actually the tapestry of rituals. It's actually beautiful. The tapestry of ritualism is amazing. I'm not even denying that. What I am you know ये करने का मतलब कह रहा हूँ कि can we have a better system? And the argument that it is ancient and they could not get rid of it is a bad argument, because not getting rid of something is not a good argument.
Mm.
We have not gotten rid of many things in our evolutionary timescale. It doesn't mean it's it's the right thing to do. We have to have an objective standard and judge things by that objective standard.
What do you think about Ambedkar's argument that to annihilate Jati Varna, you have to attack at the sanctity of the scriptures, and only when the sanctity of the scriptures, which advocate for this kind of system, is attacked and discarded, only then can you really annihilate
I
caste.
agree. I agree. But then Ambedkar was only partially attacking, na? Why didn't Ambedkar attack all the Buddhist scriptures that were equally
Okay,
casteist?
but
That
Ambedkar's
he
Buddhism is
that he
barely
conveniently
Buddhist.
missed out, na? That he conveniently is like, नहीं 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 इसके बारे में तो बात नहीं करेंगे हम. Buddhism is, if not more casteist, equally casteist.
It is casteist. I agree with you. But if you look at Ambedkar's project, it's not that his Buddhism is barely Buddhism. It's
Which
basically
is why
social.
we should not call it Buddhism. Whatever it is, it's not Buddhism. He discards the uh, Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
I
He
think
he
it's in the
doesn't accept
22
that.
vows. It's in the 22 vows.
Ambedkar did an Arya Samaj 2.0 basically. That's all he did. Like the 16 rules of Arya Samaj that were reduced to the 10 rules of Arya Samaj later on. So obvious, huh? 10 commandments, 10 rules. So unoriginal. What the Arya Samaj did. I mean, it's quite obvious what they've done. They are force fitting their new morality on their old system. That's all
It's
they're doing.
okay because probably he believed that people needed the fiction for them to have a
I
system of
agree.
social.
I agree. I agree. See, my point
Because
is if Ambedkar,
you will agree that nationalism is a fiction.
obviously, I'm not a nationalist or a patriot. I say we
Yes.
play fictions, and I'm also playing a fiction.
And I'm saying
Obviously,
Ambedkar did that too. That's what Ambedkar did.
obviously, all I'm saying is Ambedkar wanted to attack one scripture. I would have agreed with Ambedkar in totality if he had said attack all scriptures, which is what I do. In my book, I attack all scriptures. And my regret is I did not attack Periyar. That's my biggest regret. In that chapter, number 5, out of my sheer stupidity, I forgot to attack Periyar.
So on Ambedkar's side was also Savarkar, and this is where I think we'll end after talking about Savarkar. Uh, it's interesting to see because uh, you said the article that I've written where I talk a bit about Savarkar on your TL, and I identify that the things that Savarkar said about Muslims was unforgiving, unjustifiable, and uh, pretty clearly bigoted.
Yeah, I don't agree with his views there.
But but
Who's
that
denying?
but that forms the core of Hindu nationalism.
Doesn't.
His
Doesn't form
Hindutva.
the core. The Hindu Mahasabha constitution should form the core. Because at the end of the day, people have stupid beliefs at an individual
But
level.
even after the Hindu Mahasabha constitution, when he was negotiating with the orthodoxies, he said that we are not going to mandate temple entry for low caste people or have abolish caste in our constitution.
He was
He
living
said
with
that
the
it
reality
was
of his time, but he also was the first man to start the Patita Pavan Mandir. He was also the person who started interdining. So he can only work with the hand he's played. So you have to understand, ek to wo banda itne, see, nobody from the Congress went for Kala Pani. Savarkar went for Kala Pani. Nobody wants to answer this question of mine कि कांग्रेस के एक भी नेता को काला पानी क्यों नहीं हुआ. अंबेडकर को मतलब सावरकर को क्यों हुआ. क्लियरली सावरकर ने हद से ज्यादा कालाकांडी की थी इन लोगों के साथ, गोरों के साथ. So that's not a fair criticism of Savarkar.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying
So
that
his most anti-Muslim views should be discarded. But can his anti-superstition, can his support for rationality, can his work towards abolition of discrimination, can his statement of the cow is bovine, not divine, be discarded too? What's the point?
no,
Every
no.
human being has flaws. Savarkar had flaws. And the baseline, see, this entire thing, no, but Hindutva, matlab that one quote of Savarkar is the entire baseline of Hindutva. No, it's not.
It's
Today,
it's
the
in the it's
so what?
central to his writings. You see, it appears repeatedly throughout his writings. And as time goes on, he becomes more and more and more bitter
But you're
towards the
making us
Muslims.
you making the assumption that Hindutva is like the word of God. Savarkar is
I'm not
God and he's
saying
the
that. I'm saying
prophet.
I have to analyze it theoretically where it
No, you
comes
have to
from.
analyze it that Hindutva as a movement had that one thinker who had one thought at that point of time.
Yes,
Hindutva is an evolving movement. It's not the word of God or the Quran, which once written cannot be reformed. Sar Chalak Mohan Bhagwat said that I don't agree with many things Golwalkar says. I'm sure you must have heard that 2-3 years
yes,
ago
yes.
in an open press conference. That's Hindutva. And the next search Sanchalak might say and might find something said by the current Sar Sanchalak problematic, and you'll be like, society has changed, we should change. That's Hindutva. Hindutva is the Hindu response to Hindu realities. And the Hindu reality changes, Hindutva changes. So maybe at that time, the Hindu response was slightly anti Muslim and bigoted, and we should discard that today. That's Hindutva. Hindutva is not the word of God. Hindutva is a response to the reality of that time from a Hindu. That's what the core of Hindutva is. That the core of Hindutva नहीं सावरकर ने एंटी मुस्लिम बात लिखी थी. सावरकर ने एंटी मुस्लिम बात लिखी थी, उसको मैं रिजेक्ट करता हूं, मैं उसको कंडेम करता हूं. सावरकर ने जो अच्छी चीजें लिखी थी मैं उसको यूज करूंगा. अंबेडकर ने भी बहुत गलत चीजें लिखी थी, तो मैं क्या
Yeah.
करूं उसके बारे में. अंबेडकर ने कितनी अच्छी चीजें लिखी थी उस पर क्यों नहीं. गांधी ने बहुत गलत चीजें लिखी थी. इसका मतलब क्या गांधी का पूना पैक्ट हम भूल जाए. What about the Pune Pact of Gandhi? The impact Nehru has done all bad things for society, but Nehru did the best thing by getting the Hindu Code Bill. So we should not applaud Nehru for the Hindu Code Bill. Plus, we should look at the larger impact a person has, and the larger impact Savarkar had on Hindu society was much better than worse. I believe that reducing Savarkar to an anti-Muslim bigot is straw manning Savarkar.
I'm not reducing him to that. I'm saying that that element is very
Definitely there.
important. It's a crucial factor in his formulation of Hindutva.
I don't think so.
I'm
It's a
saying
crucial factor. I think it's a factor. It is not crucial. Crucial depends on your taste of what
no,
depends on.
it's not on my test. It's written in response to the Khilafat movement, and
Obviously.
he is clearly sad that the Muslims are expressing what he calls extraterritorial loyalties, and so you
Do
cannot
you think his
one man.
critique of the Khilafat movement
I
is
think it was
unfair?
fair. I think it was fair. I think
So
it was
that's
fair.
what. So how do
But
you how do you see the problem with Savarkar is not that his critique of the Khilafat was unfair. The problem is his later on extrapolations were unfair.
yes, But though those he claimed were central to his ideology of Hindutva.
At that time, he felt that was needed. Why do we
In
have to?
six glorious epochs of India, that's a bitter book. He even discards Ambedkar in that, calling him Hindu hater, because still until the 1960s, until that last book, he is sympathetic to Ambedkar and his movement to caste. But there he discards Ambedkar. He discard.
लोग
Wait,
लोग
wait.
बूढ़े हो
Let
जाते
me
हैं.
let me give you an example. In Hindutva, he stretches out a hand towards the Muslims. He says the Khojas, the Bohras, the Sias, they're ours. Akbar was ours.
Yeah,
Dara
he
Shikoh
does.
was a moral victory for Hindu. In Six Glorious Epochs, he says Akbar was a foreigner. He did not belong to India. So no matter how great he was, he can never belong to India. And that we
Hmm.
should never stretch out a hand to the Muslims. And those writings are there. Those writings are in 1960. So he
Yeah.
obviously becomes more bitter and formulates his ideology in an entirely different way that was exclusivist.
Which is why Savarkar had completely lost the grip over Hindutva by the 1955 1960s. And RSS had completely taken over Hindutva and its formulation in the future. Hindus and Hindutva accept it until it's moderate. Do you think Savarkar was powerful in the 60s?
No,
And his
that was
bit.
probably because he was persecuted and because of
No, it's because of
Gandhi's.
the bitterness. Society rejects people who are bitter. Hindu society rejects bitter people. Hindu society does not survive on bitterness, which is why RSS today is where it is today. Immediately reject कर देती है Hindu society. That's the reason. So whatever Savarkar wrote at that time should be condemned. Simple. But whatever Savarkar wrote in his formative years
Hmm.
should be applauded.
I
When he was
applaud
at
it.
Yeah, when I know in the end of the article you do say that Savarkar was a progressive. You called
Yes,
Savarkar a progressive.
he
I
was
know.
he was a progressive. He was a progressive, and he was also, if you see Narendra Dabholkar, who was murdered apparently by allegedly Hindu uh, extremists. He was a rationalist. He quotes Savarkar in his book, and he says Savarkar should be taught in all universities because he's against rituals and
Yeah,
magic.
Dabolkar is a Maharashtrian. Obviously, Dabolkar understands Savarkar because Dabolkar read Savarkar in Marathi, right? So anybody who is from, like I read Savarkar in Marathi. So I understood Savarkar from a Maharashtrian's perspective because I could read Marathi. So I understood where Savarkar came. Why do you think I admire Savarkar and Ambedkar the most? Both of them were very bitter by the end of their life. Do you think Ambedkar was not bitter by the end of his life? He was so
He was
bitter.
very bitter. He was very bitter.
So the point is, yeah, sometimes we should let go of these things. Like
Mm.
Ambedkar, Savarkar, Gandhiji, in fact, in that sense, was never bitter. Gandhiji was in a world of his own. Gandhiji was in cloud cuckoo land. He had created this cloud cuckoo land, and Gandhiji lived his own. Like Nehru, listen, even I am fiercely critical of Nehru. I think he was a bad force for India overall. He was a net negative for India. But still, I applauded him also for the Hindu Code Bill. Good, he did that. At least he saved Hindu women from the tyranny of misogyny and patriarchy, right? And it's how we look at the world. I guess I am a more forgiving person by nature,
Mm.
which is why I have now developed a more nuanced view about religion also. Like it's just, I think with age you change. Like I'm sure if I was in your age, I would have been very bitter about Savarkar as a young atheist. I would have been very bitter too. In fact, you are far less bitter about Savarkar than I am. I would not have had your level of nuance in your age. I would have been very bitter and a Savarkar hater. But I think people who hate Savarkar are being unfair to Savarkar, and people who
Mm.
think Savarkar was flawless are also being unfair to Savarkar. I think Savarkar is a great leader of Indian society. That is a fact. And
Yes.
like every leader of Indian society, Savarkar was a net positive, not a net negative. यार लोग सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल की अथॉरिटेरियन टेंडेंसीज के बारे में बात ही नहीं करते हैं यार.
Or
एंड आई एम अ
Subhash
ह्यूज.
Bose.
और यार सुभाष बोस, माय गुडनेस, क्या अथॉरिटेरियन टेंडेंसीज थी सुभाष बाबू की. मगर क्या
He
हम
wrote
उन लोगों.
about it.
Yeah. And so what, should we not respect them for what they did for our society?
Obviously, we
Yeah.
should respect them, and they were
Yes.
brave enough.
Yes, they stood up for us, and we should always respect them, because whatever freedoms you and I enjoy today is because these great men and women, they toiled and toiled and toiled, like Bhagat Singh, like so many of them. Like, how many people know Bhagat Singh was inspired by Savarkar? How many people know about this? That Savarkar and Arya Samaj were a huge inspirational factor of Bhagat Singh, not Marx and Lenin. Bhagat Singh himself writes how much he was inspired by these characters
But he
and
was
leaders.
also inspired by Marx and Lenin.
Yes, but Bhagat Singh's inspiration was revolutionary from them.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, Bhagat
Also
Singh's,
economic. Also
yeah,
economic.
yeah, but Bhagat Singh's societal influence was very much Arya Samaj and Savarkar, and these things, which is why in my book I say the quintessential Indian way is the khichdi. We are literally a khichdi society. अभी मैं वेस्ट में रहता हूँ, मैं वेस्ट में मेरे दोस्तों को बोलता हूँ, बोला यार तुम हमको डाइवर्सिटी मत सिखाओ यार, तुम हमको टेक्नोलॉजी सिखाओ, फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल सिखाओ, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग सिखाओ, तुम हमको डाइवर्सिटी से हैंडल करना मत सिखाओ यार। मुझे बड़ा इंसल्टिंग लगता है जब तुम लोग हमको डाइवर्सिटी सिखाते हो। हम तुमसे है ना बहुत ज्यादा डाइवर्सिटी झेल चुके हैं और झेल रहे हैं। तुम लोगों को आइडिया नहीं है इस चीज का। वन थिंग इंडियंस कैन टीच द वर्ल्ड इज डीलिंग विद डाइवर्सिटी। यार डाइवर्स सोसाइटी है यार अपनी। Look at you and I. We disagree on so many things, but can you show me one society where you and I will be standing together, marching together? The way we, like, you were there in Delhi. पता नहीं 200-250 कितने लोग आए थे, वो बेसमेंट में फंस गए थे बेचारे, बैठे थे, खड़े थे। You remember Anand straw poll? He started by how many disbelievers? Not even 10% were disbelievers. Then after Anand's tirade against God, how many are believers? Now everybody was a believer still. And still they bought my book. They celebrated it. You are sitting right beside me and listening to the comments of young kids. Tell me another society. Church of England करेगी God delusion को promote? नहीं करेगी। ये सिर्फ ये हमारी सोसाइटी है जो मेरे और तुम्हारे जैसे लोगों को प्यार करती है, टॉलरेट नहीं करती है, प्यार करती है। यार ये महान सोसाइटी है, हमें उसकी, वी शुड सेलिब्रेट। द वन थिंग आई फाइट, व्हाई डू यू थिंक आई फाइट द मोस्ट अगेंस्ट दिस ट्विटर ट्रैड क्राउड? Because they are a virus in our society, because they are going to finish off the beauty of our society. The beauty of my society was that my book was celebrated by people of other darshanas, which is why I end the book by saying I'm a proud Hindu. Yes, I was forced, Hindu identity was forced on me by my parents because they were Hindu. They just gave it to me. But today I celebrate it with pride. And the proof is, look at my book. Who's celebrating my book? It's not the rationalists who are celebrating my book. They should be, because my book is a clear-cut criticism of my society. But यार, हम illiberal हैं तो हम liberal भी हैं, हम लेफ्ट विंग है तो हम राइट विंग भी हैं, हम एक कॉम्प्लेक्स, बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स सोसाइटी है हम। एंड आई होप माय बुक टीचेस दैट टू पीपल। My book was an ode to my culture, that the most, that this was my way of saying thank you to my society. It has flaws. Tell me one society doesn't have flaws. A- and I like the West also. I'm a very pro West guy. I'm not a very anti West person, which is something, to the chagrin of the section of the Indian right wing, that they call me a Western lackey. I don't care, they call me whatever. I think the West is awesome too. What is
Yeah.
wrong with the West? It's awesome. But I think India is awesome too. I think India is beautiful, and we should celebrate that. I don't want young children to not see the good side of India. Anwesh, you would not be accepted the way you are. You only told me, na? There were so many young Hindu kids who told you that they applaud you for what you're doing. Tell me, कौन सी सोसाइटी में ये होगा? और वो सब तुमसे डिसएग्री करते हैं, मगर वो कितना प्यार कर। एक होता है तुमको एक्सेप्ट करना, वो तुझे प्यार करते हैं। वो तुझे प्यार क्यों करते हैं? क्योंकि वो तुझ में धर्म देखते हैं। ये समझ है ना, ये उम्र के साथ आई मुझे, जीवन जी के आई मुझे। I was not as wise as you. I always say this. You are far wiser than I was at the age of 20. मुझे ये जीवन जी के आई समझ, एंड इसके लिए अब मैं ये शेयर करना चाहता हूँ लोगों के साथ। आई गेस दैट वुड बी माई last message to your audience. I want to share the wisdom of Indian society. I think India has a lot of good things to offer also, which I believe Indians like you and I can share much better than some random Gora sitting in America. I think we can express ourselves and explain ourselves much better than some person in United States of America, is my opinion. I could be wrong.
I completely agree with literally everything you said there. So we have no disagreement on this point. One last question. This is a disagreement that we have, and I wanted to explore this. My opposition to Hindu nationalism is not societal. I don't care what goes on at the societal level if there's a Hindu movement. It's probably good if it's going to eliminate caste. Okay. But I oppose identity politics of all forms. And I think Hindu nationalism is often quite explicitly form of identity politics that is detrimental to larger society because it harks back to that golden age and all of that. Also is at times virulently uh, anti-minority. I'll give you an example. Even states, if you look at the love jihad ordinances that the UP government brought in, the uh, there was a reversal of normal functioning, normal law. Now the burden of proof was on the one who was accused. It was not on the one. It was not of the state to prove it. If you were accused, you were presumed guilty. It's a reversal of justice. And the UP government brought it. The UP government brought the love jihad ordinance. So
So, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I did a whole podcast with Nikhil criticizing the love jihad law. So how am I supposed to speak for it? I myself did a whole podcast criticizing the damn law. So I find it very hard to speak up for it because I don't know if people know. I did a whole freaking podcast about it with Nikhil. We broke down the UP law and but listen, what I'll deal with is the identity politics bit. Nobody likes identity politics. Who does? Have you met a politician off the record who likes identity politics? But why do they play it then? It's like, the classic thing, जो बिकता है, वो दिखता है. Now you might come back and say that doesn't mean a politician should do it. Come on,
mm,
yaar. To that I will say, come on, get real. Politicians are here to play politics. Matlab, to expect a politician to not play politics is like a batsman to not do batting.
why can't you envision an ethical politics, like Gandhi would have done?
घंटा गांधी से एक म्युनिसिपालिटी का इलेक्शन नहीं जीता जा रहा था. अरे कम ऑन यार. Matlab, this is the problem. Right now, you sound like John Lennon singing, Imagine there's no country, no religion too. But there is a country, there is religion too. I mean, these are, utopian ideas. Utopias में रहने वाले irrationality होती है. Like the libertarians who say the state has no role to play. अबे चुप कर यार. The state has role to play. Identity is an integral part of human existence. We have to dilute it sufficiently
Mm,
at the level of state policies. Politics is always going to be identitarian because human beings are identitarian. What we should demand for is an identity less state policy. That though no political party wants to do in India. The entire intellectual edifice of Indian constitutional framework is based on the sanctity of the group, not the individual. Whether it's the Congress, whether it's the BJP, whether it's the Aam Aadmi Party, whether it's the Samajwadi Party, whether it's the Bahujan Samaj Party, whether it's the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, any political party of India does not believe in the sanctity of the individual. They all believe in the sanctity of the group. The fight that all of us, whether left of center, right of center, libertarian, anywhere, if all of us fight for the sanctity of the individual in Indian constitutional parlance, then we can have these discussions. I don't give a shit about what a politician says 3 months before. the election time because they say shit all the time. I read the manifesto. Manifestos scare me. I read policy documents. I read laws. You're talking about love jihad law. Look at the Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand. 98% it was perfect, but that 2% on live-in relationships. I mean, I don't know if you saw my podcast with Nikhil. While reading the law, we started laughing on the podcast कि ये किसी सोसाइटी के 80 साल के अंकल ने लिखा हुआ है. Eh, you're having sex. Shut up. How dare you have sex? It's so stupid. So again, because laws in India and policy making in India is not from an individuality lens. The struggle, I always tell Indians, aspire for an American political system which is fiercely individualistic. Never
Mhm.
aspire for individualism in the societal system. You need family there. Family is deeply important because if your family structure falls, you know what happens? The state becomes your mummy daddy. And when the state becomes your mummy daddy, you are so screwed. And that's exactly what is happening in big liberal cities of America. The state is your mummy, papa, dada, dadi, nana, nani. Go to hell. I don't want such a shitty mummy, papa, dada, dadi, nana, nani. Because वो जगत पप्पा, जगत मम्मा, जगत दादा, जगत दादी है. नहीं मेरे को सिंगल डेडिकेटेड दादा दादी चाहिए. जगत का मतलब मेरे बाजू वाले का भी वही बाप है, मेरा भी वही बाप है, उसके बाजू वाले का भी वही बाप है. ये सबका बाप एक ही है, नहीं चाहिए मेरे को. So I think we have diagnosed the problem in a wrong manner. The diagnosis it is, can we fight for political individualism in India? Once we ensure and enshrine political individualism in India at the constitution, बाकी सब immaterial है, ये सब चलता रहेगा. Because हम जिस चीज को solve करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, I think उसका कोई solution ही नहीं है. Human beings are going to be tribal no matter what you do. They might congregate. Is boss, we have had social science experiments that kids become tribal like this. They form teams like this. That's how deeply ingrained it is. So why are we fighting that? We should fight for political individualism. And I see everyone obsessed with why are people playing identity politics? I literally believe, why are you expecting a batsman not to bat? Batsmen will
It's
bat.
only when a political party advocates for political individualism that you can expect it to so in your policies.
So good point. No political party is advocating for political individualism is because none of us are demanding it in a sufficient voice. In my opinion, what are the demands of Indian society? Police reforms. Would you agree we need police reforms?
Yeah,
We need body cameras. We need more police, not less police in India. We
yes.
need more trained police, a police with more empathy, right? Nobody demands that. How many people demand that, Anvesh? तुम करोगे, मैं करूंगा, निखिल मेहरा करेगा, अभिजीत अय्यर मित्रा करेगा, अमित वर्मा कर लेगा अपनी पॉडकास्ट पे, और 4-5 लोग और कर लेंगे. मेरे को एक बात बताओ, 100 बेवकूफ के बियॉन्ड कोई कर रहा है इंडिया में ये? हम लोग 100 बेवकूफ हैं. हम 100 बेवकूफ डिमांड करते हैं ये. जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म्स. यार इंडिया में जज ही जज को सिलेक्ट करता है. ये क्या वियर्ड सिस्टम है. और जब गवर्नमेंट ने लाने की कोशिश की रिफॉर्म्स, तो जज ने उसको कैंसिल कर दिया. बोला ये तू तो मेरे में आ रहा है.
Free
So
speech.
second, free speech. Who wants free speech in India? How many? There
I
are,
do.
I mean, हम लोग 100 गधे हैं. हम 100 गधों को छोड़ के 101वां नहीं मिलता मुझे. मैं तो अब इसीलिए कह रहा हूं कि वी हैव टू स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट दीज आइडियाज मोर विथ यंग किड्स. When we create the critical mass for this, that's when the polity will change. And that will change when we reach around $7,000 to $8,000 income. That means in another 10 to 12 years. That's when these things become a demand. Right now, they are much low. Remember the Maslow's hierarchy. हम यहाँ हैं.
Mm.
हमारी डिमांड्स बहुत ट्राइबल हैं. जब हम यहाँ से यहाँ आएंगे ना, तो ये थोड़े चेंज होंगे. फिर यहाँ से यहाँ आएंगे और चेंज होंगे. हम यहाँ हैं. हमें इसको यहाँ से यहाँ लाना है. थोड़ा पैसे वाला बनना है. इसके लिए इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स मांगो अभी. इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी मांगो अभी. फिर जब यहाँ से यहाँ गए ना, फिर ये सब हो जाएगा. एंड आई एम वेरी श्योर तुम्हारे लाइफ टाइम में होगा. शायद मेरे लाइफ टाइम में ना हो, मैं मर गया हूँगा, मगर तुम्हारे लाइफ टाइम में पक्का हो जाएगा. ये पक्का हो जाएगा, देखना. एंड यू विल रिमेंबर मी कि हाँ, कुशल मेहरा ने मुझे बोला था ये।
Uh, I had an excellent time talking with you. I had great fun, and here's the book. I'll put the link in the description below for those who want to buy. Uh, Thank you very much for doing this, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
No, no, I loved it. I am proud of you, and I say this with all seriousness. You know, when I see young kids like you, I feel like in my heart, I was like, हाँ, कुछ उम्मीद है, बच्चे हैं जो मशाल लेके आगे लड़ रहे हैं, और और or आगे, more power to you. I wish you nothing but success and happiness. I have said this offline to you. I want to say this online to you. I am proud of you. I am proud of what you are. I am proud of your achievements at such a young age. And I wish you nothing but happiness in your life, and never change, never listen to people blindly, question the shit out of everyone, and keep writing, keep reading. So thank you very much. I am more than happy. I am available to chat with you anytime, any place. I will always support you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for doing this. We would do this sometime again soon. All right.